Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes Podcast. We're here with John Colliker, who is the CEO of Leland. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you. Joint friend, Adam Pulsifer, arranged
Yeah.
this. Good
Yeah.
dude.
Shout out to Adam.
He does listen to this.
Good. We'll check. We'll see if he does.
Yes, indeed. All right. I'm excited about this one because I think there's some really good impact that you guys are making. But tell us what Leland is.
Yeah. So Leland's a marketplace where you can find a coach or take classes to help you reach your goals, career and educational goals. If you're applying to medical school or undergrad, or you're trying to get into investment banking, consulting, or other career paths, we have someone or classes or content that can help you.
Very cool. So these are not like you and your friends because that doesn't scale, right?
Yeah.
The marketplace for everything that you just talked about is big.
Yeah.
People want to get into schools, they want to improve. But the marketplace for knowledgeable people is smaller. So, how do you guys source what do you call them? Mentors, tutors?
We call them coaches, but
Coaches.
yeah, it could be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think initially it was very, network driven. It was, talking to friends or other people that we knew that did this or wanted to get into it. I think we're big believers that expertise is not trapped in a few heads, even though there are some really loud voices on social media that have built an audience. And so we think there's a lot of unutilized expertise out there. So as we've grown, we've actually been overwhelmed with supply. We have a pretty strict application process and only accept kind of the top percentile of people. But that's, it wasn't always that way. It was a lot scrappier in the beginning. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think most people listening to this can empathize because they've had a coach, a mentor, even if it's just a quick drive-by.
Yeah.
I know I still do that. I joke that I can go for 10 minutes on venture, private equity, or some of these other things, but I can't go 11 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a generalist.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good thing, but it's where I am. I live in a lot of worlds, but oftentimes I'm like, I'd really love for somebody to explain this in more detail.
Yeah.
I'd be asking for that for free, which is,
Yeah.
I guess everyone's right. But
Sure.
if I was like the 24-year-old version of me, I would pay somebody to help me explain some
Yeah.
of this, right?
Yeah. I think what we've seen is that, a lot of us have been reached out to by folks that are trying to access, some perspective or expertise. But typically it ends with like one call, right? If you're lucky. And that call is usually kind of taken on the fly, and it can be super valuable. But what happens after that? What happens when I need more personalized help? And I think that's where, we've found a lot of coaches that are willing to take one-off calls, and they're good people, and they're actually doing their coaching on Leland to give back. But I think it's also nice for them to say, hey, here's what it's worth for me to continue meeting with you on a weekly basis, or even like several times a week if you have an upcoming goal or deadline. So
Yeah.
I think we've kind of centered it around also very kind of inflection point times of your life where you are applying to school, you're applying to job, you're trying to level up, and you need a lot of help in a concentrated way rather than kind of you can still get a lot of value from one-off conversations for sure.
Yeah.
But you might pay for that more like concentrated help.
Yeah. A lot of those I feel like, I wish I had 20 more minutes or 2 more hours.
Yeah.
And it's just not realistic, right? So that's why you guys can have a system and a platform and marrying
Yeah.
up the two. Where did the idea come from? Because you have a pretty unique background with some local logos like Peterson and Album, but also Google, Uber, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from for Leland?
Yeah. So I loved my time at Album and Peterson. Those were some of my internships when I was in college, and then started my career at LinkedIn, and had interned at Uber, and then I joined a startup called Curated that was another marketplace. So I'd been professionally, my job was building marketplace products, right? It was connecting riders to drivers, or on LinkedIn, recruiters to consumers, or at Curated, it was, experts who were selling golf clubs. So I've been building these kind of two-sided networks my whole career. On the side, I had applied to business school through a deferred process where you apply, you get in, and then you work for a few years. And so started just helping people for fun apply to school. A lot of friends from BYU originally was just doing it for free, but eventually was like, oh, maybe I'll sell content, or I'll run a boot camp, or do, kind of beef up this business. And so I was running this business while also working at LinkedIn. And, just started to realize, like, number one, how big this market was. People were desperate and excited. I mean, there's good and bad feelings with these moments of applying to jobs or applying to school. And just felt like there was a really interesting opportunity to not only do this in my tiny niche of, deferred MBAs, but to do this much more broadly. And we have to start somewhere. You have to stay focused. But as we've grown, there's kind of this natural pull to the next category, the next thing. Oh, you help my friend with applying to medical school. Can you help me? I'm applying to PA school, or I'm applying to product design role. Can you help my friend who's applying to data science roles? And so there's kind of this natural extension that we've kind of seen over time.
Yeah. And so the start was, though, with schools, like MBA schools?
Yeah. First category was MBA. I was getting my MBA at Stanford, so it was a great place to, meet a lot of people that had used coaches or that wanted to do some coaching themselves. So it was just a great place to kind of get things going. And then pretty quickly, we got customers saying, hey, this coach was great for applying to MBA programs, but they also worked at McKinsey. Could they help me, apply to jobs in consulting? And, of course, there's no reason why not. So we started to kind of layer on additional categories after that.
Very cool. And now there's schools, MBA and medical and dental, and then like product management.
Yeah.
Which I think is the most confusing position on the org chart, right?
Yeah.
And, management consulting, obviously venture and private equity. A lot of my friends, they earned it.
Yeah.
A few made it in, a lot didn't. And I don't know the reasons, right? Like, it was pretty apples to apples. And I know for a fact they would have been great customers.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Because that's what they needed. They were pretty squared away, pretty prepared. They just needed a little extra.
Yeah. I think we see a lot of that where you have qualified people that can't get in the door for whatever reason. And if they had the chance, they would actually probably do a really good job.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it seems like relationships are really what make that difference, or some sort of like personalized touch to get you over the line. And so I think ideally, coaching is great for knowledge transfer. Content is great for knowledge transfer, but the kind of the extra layer to get you in the door and, to the finish line, I think it really helps to just have, someone in your corner.
Yeah, for sure. You kind of had an advantage with like your love of marketplaces, and you might not needed to have guessed as much like on how do I price this? What do I do first? Is it the coaches? Is it the students? Right? Like, you had a little bit of a head start there, but I assume there's still a lot of curveballs. What comes first? There's a lot of chicken or eggs with this type of business. Yeah. Was it the coaches? Was it the students / career movers?
Yeah. For us, it was coaches. It was let's just build kind of I mean, the reality is it's a concentrated effort on both. But I think to start, let's get some initial listings of coaches, kind of a low bar for them. Hey, you have the chance of getting some customers. Just kind of go and build a profile, see what happens. As they get some clients, they start to beef that up a little bit more. But yeah, marketplaces are hard. We're still debating pricing. We're still debating how do we package coaching. We're still debating a lot of this stuff. And every marketplace is a little different. So I think any marketplace founder would tell you that the advice they get from any other marketplace is there's always tweaks to how it actually will apply to yours. So
yeah. What is the current business model? How do you guys get paid? How do the coaches get paid?
Yeah, so coaches today set their own prices. It's meant to be very flexible. So you come on to Leland as a customer, you tell us your goal, your budget, your background, and then we show you a search result with coaches that are tailored to that budget, background, and goals. And coaches are setting those prices, and then we take a sliding take rate, 10 to 20%, depending on how much coaching you're paying, and that comes out of the coach's side.
Okay, very cool. And you mentioned this a little bit at the beginning. Some of these people, they might want the money, they might need it, but some, it's just like a cherry on the top. And yeah. I get the sense that it's nice to have that extra income, but they also get gratification. Is that true?
Totally, yeah. So we actually ask coaches, what's your primary goal in coaching? And like 95% cite their most important reason as wanting to give back. And I think they may subconsciously really love the kind of extra money that comes through, even if they're not citing that as their number one reason. because it shows them that their time is valued. And but a lot of them will say, hey, if you ever have like someone with this demographic, like if it's a veteran or if it's, you know, an LGBTQ member or if it's like someone from South America, like I love that demographic, I'll do those folks for free.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of like we need to formalize that, but you know, I think there's once you have the marketplace, I mean, it's like Airbnb with the Ukrainian crisis. Like they were, because they had the network, they were able to open up so many homes for so many people. And I think our goal would be, once you have this liquidity, you can do some really interesting things to give back, in addition to obviously, you know, building a business.
Absolutely. And for somebody that is doing this, you know, 9 to 5, or if they're an investment banker, private equity, probably a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you can obviously set your own schedule too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a handful of coaches that this is their thing. They do, like Leland is supporting their families and their livelihood. Most of our coaches though are doing this on the side. Yeah. It's you know, they carve out 5 to 10 hours a week and you know, take on clients, and then they ramp down when they're slammed at work or whatever, and can ramp back up as they need to.
Very cool. So way flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's I get asked to look at pitch decks a lot, right? And I don't want to do it 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it like half of the nights on the week, but every once in a while I'm like, kids are in bed, everything's good, there's no hockey or baseball.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to, and that's when I do it.
Yeah.
And it makes it easy. I'm
Yeah.
already in the mindset of I'm good for the next hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the challenges that we're working through is how do we make it so, you know, we could drive a lead to you in those moments of downtime, because
Yeah.
sometimes the leads come through and they're like, oh, I really want this type of person. And it's like, okay, well, oh, they might be busy this week. And so
Yeah.
you got to go to someone else. And so figuring out how to, you know, load balance and do the matching is obviously always a challenge in marketplaces.
Yeah. If you can crack that nut, that'll be very additive. I've got a group of friends that I know for a fact when they call me, they're on a road trip. It's the only time they call.
Yep.
It happens to be several
They're in the
times
car.
a year. They're in the car.
Yeah.
Like, where are you going? Going to St. George. Okay.
Yeah.
That's their time to like catch up.
Catch up with all the friends. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it's good, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. So, the duration is, I guess, up to the person being coached and mentored,
Yeah.
and it could go for a while, or it could be like 2 or 3, and that gets the job done. Correct?
That's right. Yeah. I think we're learning what is the minimum to really have an impact. Like our sole focus needs to be, and is today, how do we help customers achieve their goals? And sometimes you can get, you know, 1 hour of time with a coach and it can be super impactful and it can lead to you achieving their goal, but oftentimes it is more. So I think figuring out how do we build kind of a custom playbook for someone and say, hey, here's what a lot of people do, but here's maybe how it might be tailored to you. And sometimes they're, you know, week-long engagements because they just have an interview coming up. And sometimes it's, you know, several years that they're working towards a goal.
Yeah. I imagine that's got to be fun and rewarding for the coaches to possibly become
Oh, yeah.
friends.
Oh,
Right,
totally.
like-
Yeah. Yeah. We had, you know, last year we had this amazing couple who was applying to business school. They're actually from Utah, or went to school in Utah from California. They're applying to business school. They worked with their coaches and they got waitlisted, and they're like, oh my gosh, like we're so close. And their coaches said, hey, why don't you come out and visit Stanford, and you can come to class with us and you can come to lunch with us. We'll introduce you to some people. And they took a whole trip out there and, you know, did everything with their coaches. They went to like beer pong night with Stanford MBAs and everything, and built that real relationship. And then when the time came for them to let people off the wait list, students had sent an email saying, hey, these two are awesome. Like, we've gotten to know them personally. And they were the first two that got called. So they're now at Stanford now. So yeah, it's
cool.
super rewarding to see the relationships forming.
Oh yeah. And those trump a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
The personal relationships.
Yeah.
Very cool. And for the coaches, do they have, what is the vetting process for you guys, right? Because
Yeah.
I think you might need to be careful there. Like, I'm pretty darn good at this, and then you guys say no, right?
Yeah.
What is that like now?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I think there's kind of two buckets here. One is what kind of credentialing do they have? Have they achieved the goals? Have they helped other people achieve those goals? And that's kind of the easy part to vet, right? Because you can kind of look at their resume, you can look at what they've done. The much harder part to vet is like the soft skills that make coaches great, right?
Yeah.
How responsive are they? How willing are they to go above and beyond? How much do they care? Are they good communicators? So we have different things that we do, and we've experimented with writing articles. We do video screens. We get on the phone with coaches. So we've kind of over-indexed on being careful there to start, but that will be a challenge as we grow, and hopefully we can kind of figure out a few. We have a couple of things that are going well with that vetting process, but it's not perfect.
Yeah. Because I'd rather take like a B player that's a good coach than a A player on a resume
know.
that isn't articulate. And
Any day of the week, yeah.
yeah. I, a long time ago, took the Series 7 and they had 2 coaches to help. And I have to translate everything into like a different Garrett language,
Yeah.
right? And it was using examples and metaphors. And one of the coaches was like, I don't know what you're talking about. The other one, luckily, did, and I scored fine, passed.
Yeah.
Without that, like, different approach, I don't know if I would have.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, I don't believe what you're saying in the textbook. I want you to say it in a different way.
Yeah.
And then I got it.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Today we have all of our coaches offer free intro calls for you to like get to know them before you start to pay for coaching, because coaching is an investment. Like we know it costs money to get a coach. So
yeah.
You're right. I mean, some of these subtleties can actually make a pretty big difference.
Yeah. Do you find, I remember, sorry, I'm keeping using these examples. That's why I like your business model so much is I was an intern at a late stage growth, private equity growth capital fund. And it's like, evaluate the financials of Groupon at the time. Mm-hmm. And they had some jankety accounting that somebody just made up out of the ether. And it wasn't I didn't have a finance or like accounting background. So like it was pretty hard for me.
Yeah.
And I did not want to look stupid.
Yeah.
So I could have theoretically used a coach.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
And gone outside of like, and then come back and acted like I knew what I was doing the whole time, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. So it's definitely not our like primary bread and butter today, but I think it's one of the bigger opportunities with Leland is you have this like amazing talent network. And I think similar to Uber, right? They had this amazing driver network. They were transporting people, but then they realized, we can actually transport food. We can transport all sorts of other things. So I think for us, it's figuring out, what we have this amazing talent network. And really the best way to figure out what to do is to see what customers are already doing. So we've started to have customers do that, where they're on some sort of consulting engagement or they're evaluating a deal or something. And they're like, I used Leland for this other thing. Like I should just go. So like good example of this is, we have a BYU alum who then got into YC and went to Harvard Business School. He's awesome. He's offered coaching for getting into business school, but then he started to get this like wave of people reaching out for help to apply to YC and then to like accelerate their startups. And so now he's like kind of built out this little niche that's not really a focus category for us, but starting to see some momentum. So
very cool. You guys are based here in Utah, office out of Kiln. How do you build your team? Like, what is the talent required to do this?
Yeah. So when we were founded during COVID. I was in the Bay Area. We had a designer in New York. We had an engineer in LA, an engineer in the Bay. Like we were spread all over the place. Over time, we've kind of mostly converged in Utah. We still have some team members in the Bay Area. But we've loved being in Utah. I think we've tried to find this try to find the best talent you can wherever you are. But I think there's just something special about being in person. And we just hired another engineer who was living in Saratoga Springs, who used to work at LinkedIn too, kind of randomly. So, we're when you're small, you're going off network, going off, friends of friends and people that have worked with your team. And we've been lucky to find some amazing people here.
Very cool. You've kind of hinted at this a little bit, but if, say you're selling software and you've done fine for 10 years, but you want to get into product management, right? I guess you could tell the powers that be that's what you want to do and risk them saying no or yes. But do you find that people are starting to use it for like the career changes just on their own accord?
Yeah. I would say it's definitely, there's like one pocket of people starting their careers and they're in college or they're recent grads and they're just trying to accelerate things or land that first big job or internship. And then there's this other pocket of all right, I went down a career path that it's been good, but I really want to be doing something totally different. And there's like maybe a few steps to get there. It's not so linear as, oftentimes I think that's a good example of people in sales. They talk to customers and they're like, I would really build this product differently. But like all my experience as sales, how do I transmit that? And so, we have coaches that came from a sales background and they can, kind of walk you through, oh, maybe you want to take an adjacent role first, or maybe you want to, do this and this, or shadow in some way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. And just like every other company and in industry, you've got to get the word out. What have you guys found is the best way through marketing and advertising?
Yeah. So testing a lot of different things here. I think for us, word of mouth is really important and powerful because these moments are so, they're so inherently viral and emotional when you get a job or when you get into school. Those people are your best ambassadors, right? So I think it's starting with the people on the platform, both the coaches and the customers, that and figuring out how do you encourage that and kind of spin that wheel. And then, a lot of the traditional things like SEO has been really important because there's a lot of questions around these topics. And we do a lot of events. Either, we're going to do an event at Kiln in a couple weeks for people applying to BYU, for parents that are trying to help their kids, apply to BYU. And then we do a lot of virtual events on different topics. So, trying a lot of different things and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. Well, if people are happy, then that's free marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's accurate. Like rich kids, their parents will break rules, bend rules, do all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff to get them into the Ivy League, and then they get like an English degree, whatever. It's really competitive, but like you put a rich kid next to a poor kid, they're not even going to be in the same
Yeah.
universe of like, that's what your parents were doing.
Yeah.
But it does democratize it a little bit because you could, if it's that important to you, it is not cost prohibitive to use Leland for the most part, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is like a really important, I mean, that in many ways is the primary focus of what we're trying to do, which is historically people who've had money and access to resources are paying for these, $10, $20, $30,000 consultants, if not more, right? There was an article that came out a few months ago that was like some parent had paid $750,000 to help their kid get into Harvard from the time they were in 7th grade. So this is happening. And I actually don't even fault parents who have those resources to try to do that. I mean, they're trying to get their kids the best advantage, but it's a real problem when you look at how much a college impacts your future, outlook on a lot of things. Of course, it's not the only determinant, and there's a lot of people that would be much better off not going to college. We're not necessarily like a proponent of everyone needs to go to college.
Yeah.
I think we definitely are a proponent of we need to unlock the opportunity to be able to get into those colleges. And of course, people with money are always going to have resources, but if you can open up some flavor of resources, whether that's, events, content, group classes, and then affordable coaching for, really what is a market that is like 100 times bigger than the market of these really, not budget conscious folks. I think it's a big business opportunity, but it's a really important like social and equity opportunity.
Oh, for sure. You're nicer and you have to be politically correct, but like the ones that have made it on their own merits versus like the Lucky Sperm Club, it's a whole different level of respect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we all know
Yeah.
how hard it is.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really tough because I think there's, none of us have made it. There's kind of like the myth of the self-made man kind of thing. We've all benefited, and I think part of that is a stigma that we have to figure out. Like, how do you encourage people to get help and to say like, hey, like your competition is getting help. This is pretty important stuff. Like, don't just rely on your uncle who went to school like 50 years ago to read your essay once and then submit it, or to like, give you his fancy advice. Like, get someone who knows what they're talking about, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You can still be successful. There are a lot of things where I think, the Varsity Blues documentary or whatever, where your parents are literally paying to change your ACT score or other things that's totally, crossing the line. But anyways.
Absolutely. You guys have also raised a little bit of capital, right?
Yeah.
You have, again, kind of the advantage of having worked for a couple of funds as an intern. Still, even if you've done it 10 times, right? Like the economy changes, the terms change, whatever.
Yeah.
What was it like for you guys? And if there's any nuggets of advice for those that'll do it.
Yeah. It's different for everyone. I think for me, the most valuable thing was I'd interned at a couple of funds that I really wanted to raise capital from, and I had kept relationships with them for a few years. And so when I was building, I was updating them. I was, keeping that relationship going, and there was just, we still ran a process and, evaluated options, but it was just so clear that those people were the people that I wanted to be involved with. And then, of course, we met a lot of new people and a couple of new funds that we wanted to participate and carved out space for them. But we had Peterson here locally invest, which I've loved. I mean, Ben Capel is, I think, one of the best investors in Utah. Certainly one of the top from a founder NPS standpoint, and he's introduced us to all sorts of Utah execs and mentors that have helped us. And then we have some Bay Area investors that have been super helpful there too. So I don't know, in terms of advice, I think it's don't trust anyone. You can't trust anyone in fundraising. It's just one of the most bizarre kind of like different processes that you go through as a founder, and you can be building a business that's going incredibly well, and then you go to talk to investors, and they're giving you all sorts of like weird feedback that I felt like I could have pointed out to them the 5 things that if they 5 bets we were making, and if you don't believe those bets, great, like you shouldn't back us, but don't like bring up this other random thing that like that doesn't really feel like it's okay. Everyone can think about the deals separately, but I felt like you really have to control your own process. You have to run a tight process, and you have to build relationships with people, because at the early days, they're backing you, which is sometimes is a weight, to know like, hey, it is like they're only backing us. They like the idea, but they're betting on our team. So it's up to you to build a good team.
Yeah, no, there's some great advice in that. Million ways to skin the cat, but
Yeah.
when I've talked to friends that have just gone through it, I'm like, how was that? And I was like, it's kind of screwed with my mind, because like it's like a little Game of Thrones constantly. Can I trust them? Do you think they actually just meant what they said?
Yeah.
I hate the maybes, right? So
Yeah, and they're not incentivized. I mean, to be fair to VCs, like they're not really incentivized to tell you the truth.
yeah,
Like they don't want to tell you we're not backing you because we don't believe in you. So they'll say let's keep in touch, or maybe down the road. And so you gotta know, you gotta spend your time with the people that are going to take it seriously. And yeah.
As CEO, wearing a lot of hats, one of those is the buck stops with you, right?
Yeah.
Don't run out of money, grow the team.
Yeah.
Don't run out of money.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure there. Is there a startup coach on Leland that you can just, even if it's just a bunch of word vomit? I got a lot of stuff on my mind.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there one?
We have a few people that do startup coaching on Leland. I don't work with them personally. I should. I have a couple of kind of mentors that and so, frankly, some of our investors that have been great for that specifically. I think no one fully appreciates what you're going through like your immediate team.
Yeah.
I mean, and also I think it's fair to say that even your immediate team, like there's really almost no one that you as a founder CEO can really turn to and vent everything.
Yeah.
Because there's kind of always different factors at play. So it can be lonely, but I think you can lean on different people for different things for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking into the future, what's got you most excited as you guys build out the team and the company in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is you have just this massive increase in interest in monetizing your knowledge online. I think COVID accelerated that, but I think just millennials and Gen Z are trying to be, trying to be, whether it's influencers or just build kind of their portfolio of work. I'm really excited that we have so many people interested in sharing their knowledge online. And at the same time, there's kind of like an infinite number of things that you could get help with. So, we're doing our best to kind of catalog, organize, and make searchable the world's knowledge, especially as it relates to really concrete goals. And we're trying to start with the customer and work backwards so that we, categorize the right information and we bring them the right knowledge to help them reach their goals. But yeah, for me, I think it's just the big opportunity of how many different career paths, how many different opportunities we could help people with, and getting the model and the product right so that we can go after that big opportunity is is really exciting.
Yeah, it's a big one. And you won't be bored for like 30 or 40 years, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I ever solicit feedback or you see me on the platform, you should kick me off because I would be very bad, right? Like, I want, when I listen to books about like the Apollo space mission, right? Whether it's Mercury, Gemini, or the Apollo, I've got like a fourth grade math level. Like most of my math teachers were also volleyball or basketball coaches, right? So
Yeah.
there's big gaps. Like physics, right? But my goodness, I would love if there was like an astronaut or a physicist
Yeah.
or some jet propulsion that could. The stories are fun and entertaining,
Yeah.
but I don't understand some of the science behind it. I would literally, with no objective of ever becoming an astronaut, pay somebody to explain some of that.
Yeah.
I would send you down way too many shiny squirrel chases. So
Yeah.
don't ever listen to anything I say, but that would be the Shangri-La for me.
Yeah.
It'd
Yeah.
be
It's
cool.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you so much, John. When I looked at the website and got to know you a little bit, I was excited for this one because of everything we just talked about, right? Like you're making an impact, the platform's making an impact, and I guarantee the success stories are just like the funnest part of the day.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, literally last week we had someone who is neurodiverse. They were diagnosed as autistic and they got into Wharton, which is like one of the top business schools in the world. And there's just like all these moments that kind of remind you why you're doing it. So yeah, thanks for having me on. And yeah, appreciate you letting us tell our story.
Cool. Thank you.